Good morning. I'm Satoru Iwata, Global President of Nintendo. 2 years ago, I was given an opportunity to provide a keynote here at TGS. The theme of my speech at that time was 20 years after Famicom, the current situation and the future of the video game industry. At that time, I talked about the history of the game industry, paying special attention to the fact that, driven by advancements in technology, video games had evolved into a sophisticated and gorgeous form of entertainment. But on the other hand, when we looked at the current market situation, the shrinking of the Japanese domestic marketplace was become obvious. Then I went on to talk about the future trends and the prospect for the video game business in this environment. The following is the short synopsis of the topics I covered 2 years ago. The game industry in the past 20 years has grown and expanded extremely well. And so far, it has not been affected seriously by our economic slump. By providing a variety of technological innovations and new hardware, the industry has been able to keep the players' interest and continue to excite and surprise new players. Because of this history, many in the industry think as long as we'll keep on doing the same things, or in other words, by making games more complex and more photorealistic, the industry will continue to grow. I'm afraid this idea is deeply ingrained in many minds. However, in past examples shown in other industries, there are a few instances that illustrate that business could continue to expand by maintaining the same structure for more than 30 years. Will anyone invent a new framework that allows for further expansion of the industry, or will video game players become bored and cause the industry to continue to shrink? We are at this crossroad, I believe. For the future of video game business, we have to expand the market. To do so, we need to abandon the memories of the past success and get back to the basics. In order to provide a video game entertainment that can be enjoyed by game players regardless of their prior gaming experience, I believe the whole industry must make an effort. This, in other words, needs to be done in order to expand the gaming population. First, unless we can increase the number of people who are willing to play, we can never expand the market. If we cannot expand the market, all we can do is just wait for the industry to slowly die. Because Nintendo was the first and only ones to identify this issue, we are the first to come up with a strategy that helps us begin the expansion of the gaming population. To illustrate this statement, I would like to explain a few of the topics we have undertaken in over the past 2 years. To expand the gaming population, there are 3 main challenges. First, we had to re-engage the people who have stopped playing video games. Second, we had to attract new gamers to the market. Finally, and most important, we had to introduce new products that appeal to both veteran gamers and novice players alike, even though non-gamers and those who've quit gaming feel that today's games are too difficult. If we were to simply offer products dedicated to novice players, we would never satisfy the need of a core fan base. So, it was important for us to find a method to pursue both audiences simultaneously. The first example I'd like to use is Famicom Mini. We launched Famicom Mini in order to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Famicom by using the original packaging and porting the original classic software to Game Boy Advance. We hoped to encourage those who had quit playing to once again play their favorite games. Between February and August of last year, we launched 3 Famicom Mini-series, or a total of 30 software titles. Fortunately, the Famicom Mini-series received an extremely warm welcome, selling more than 4 million copies. When we launched Famicom Mini, a wide variety of male and female customers, covering a broad range of ages, visited our retail outlets. Retailers often told us, dormant customers are returning to the stores. This was tangible evidence that the strategy to expand the gaming population was beginning to show results. Maybe you have already seen our TV ads and know that Super Mario Bros. Celebrated its 20th birthday this week. Since a number of retail outlets were out of stock when we originally launched the Famicom Mini version of Super Mario Bros. 2 years ago, even though we shipped 600,000 copies, we decided to relaunch this title to celebrate the birthday of the September 13th. Even the game's music alone can make us recall the happy memories, was something I often heard from numerous people. We are very fortunate to have a product that can make such an emotional connection with people. I believe Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, is here in the audience. Mr. Miyamoto, would you please stand up? Together with Mr. Miyamoto, I would like to take this opportunity also to thank all the people who love Mario once again. Thank you very much. On the birthday of Super Mario, we also launched Game Boy Micro, which is the smallest game machine in the history of Nintendo. The Famicom version, which looks like a Famicom controller, appears to be most popular. I'm sorry, some of the stores are already out of stock. However, we are ready to make additional shipments as early as next week. This Game Boy Micro is another one of the challenges we are tackling in our quest to expand the gaming population. Those people who have shied away from gaming and those who cannot afford to dedicate their time and energy to playing today's massive games, these people are the target for this product. We hope that they will enjoy this product in the same way that they fiddle with their mobile phones on train. The second challenge we face in expanding the gamer population is to find how we can entice those people who have never played with video games to join the world of gaming. In the past 20 or more years of gaming evolution, video games have become a highly sophisticated and challenging form of entertainment. On the other hand, there is no denying that the hurdle has become too high for many first-time players. Even though the market is saturated with highly advanced video games, if we were to offer only simple and easy-to-understand games, we would not satisfy the veteran gamers. Therefore, for both the veteran gamers and for those who have never played with video games, we needed a brand new proposal. A proposal that allows both groups to start playing from the same starting line. To realize this, we needed new hardware with a brand new configuration. As you all know very well, for Nintendo, the answer was the Nintendo DS. In the past, games were played with the thumbs of both hands. We began by drastically changing that interface. Dual screen, touch control, microphone input, and wireless communications. The machine was full of features to redefine the relationship between players and games, to draw a new starting line. But making hardware alone will not solve the issue. Even more important is what kind of software we can offer to fulfill this new proposal. We are aiming to expand the gaming population. We are aiming to create a new starting line for novice and veteran players alike. So, what software do we need to create? Of course, for the current gamers around the world, it is important to continue to enrich the existing game genres. We have been putting many resources into this area and we will continue to make even more efforts. On the other hand, in order to improve the software in the existing genres, developers tend to make the games more beautiful with more levels, more enemies, more sophisticated, etc., which can produce a game too intimidating for the new player. At the same time, for the veteran gamers, these games look familiar, like so many previous games, so it is not easy to provide a fresh feeling for them. So, even for these existing genres, we need to provide innovation. By taking advantage of the brand new interface of Nintendo DS, we narrow the distance between video games and game players, and at the same time, if it is our goal to expand the very definition of video games, we should create completely new genres of games made possible by the new features of the Nintendo DS. I believed that these new types of games had the greatest potential for expanding the market. I believe this so strongly that Nintendo launched an unprecedented product lineup this spring. We call this new software lineup Touch Generations. Each of these titles did not belong to any existing game genre, but instead offers brand new styles of play that can appeal to anyone regardless of their age or gender. These were the titles aimed to expand the gaming population. More specifically, Nintendogs was one of the titles we introduced you to since the announcement of Nintendo DS hardware. I think this game must be familiar to many of you. You can pet your puppies with a touch pen and teach your dog tricks with your own voice. With a brand new wireless communication method called Bark Mode, Nintendogs creates a brand new way to communicate with strangers from whom you happen to pass on the street. One of the key reasons this game has become so popular is that even those who have never played with video games can immediately start playing and enjoying Nintendogs. As of today, between the 3 different versions, a total of 1 million copies have been sold here in Japan alone. From August 22nd, we started selling Nintendogs in North America. These are the packages for the North American versions. In Japan, the Shiba breed is featured on the package, but for the Western market, a Labrador Retriever is on the package. Within just 1 week from the launch, more than 250,000 copies of Nintendogs sold through in North America, which is an even faster rate of sales than in Japan. This reinforces that dogs have a nearly universal appeal. The anticipation in Europe is growing, and we are looking forward to the European launch of Nintendogs next month. The next title is the DS Brain Training game. The game was created through collaboration with Professor Kawashima of Tohoku University. You can draw letters with a touch pen. You can directly touch the screen. You talk to the DS. These innovations in the game interface, combined with the concept of easily measuring your brain age, created a buzz amongst non-gamers, including senior citizens, and became the driving force to reach these new customers. And lastly, the game entitled Yawaraka Tamajuku, or Flexible Brain Making Software. This game also makes use of the touch pen. The game can be enjoyed by small children as well as senior citizens. Even if you have just one copy, this game will entertain all the DS hardware users around you. This game has become popular with a wide variety of people regardless of the age, gender, or prior experience with the video games. Now, exactly who purchased these games? I'd like to introduce our data from Club Nintendo. This graph shows the male-female percentage of those who have registered each game with Club Nintendo. DS has the highest number of active female players among all Nintendo hardware platforms. Among DS software, Nintendogs is enjoying a remarkably high female ratio, and so too is flexible brain-making software. Brain training has also been increasing its female ratio week after week, and it now significantly exceeds DS's average. I believe this strong evidence that we are succeeding in reaching new users. This graph shows the software registration by age. From this data, you can see that brain training DS software is popular with adults, and it is also clear that flexible brain-making software has been enjoyed by people in every age group. Since this data is collected by online registration through our Club Nintendo, the actual percentage of ownership by older consumers is probably even higher than what is represented here. Even so, the fact that many people above the age of 45 are purchasing brain trainer and flexible brain-making software is another indicator that these games are achieving a goal of expanding the gaming population. Next, we can measure how much these games have driven the sales of DS hardware by understanding when these software purchasers have purchased the DS hardware. In case of the ordinary software, other than in the hardware launch period, the hardware purchase contribution ratio seldom exceeds 30%. However, in the case of brain trainer and the flexible software making software, the contribution ratio has been rising week after week to finally exceed that of Nintendogs. In case of brain trainer, in the most recent one-month period, among all the people who registered with Club Nintendo, 6 out of 10 people purchased the DS hardware at the same time. We project that the actual hardware contribution ratio may even be much higher than this. Another thing I should note is the sales trend as well as the hardware sales contribution ratio. This graph analyzes a variety of different hit titles in Japan in the past 2 years or so. Specifically, it shows the average weekly sales rate after the launch. Today, the vast majority of video games have a very short lifespan in the market. Typically, a game sells strongest in the first week, then only little more than 20% of the first week sells in the second week, and declines a further 50% in the following week. Historically, Nintendo software enjoy longer sales than most others, but even for our games, we exceed 20% of the first week sales only in the first 6 weeks. Within 3 months of the launch, the majority of software sales had stopped. Now, let us compare this with the sales rate of touch generation software titles. I have superimposed curves for the 3 touch generation titles over the previous graph. Nintendogs keeps on selling with the same steady pace, even in its 10th week after launch. In case of Brain Trainer, the biggest sales were made in its 14th week, which is simply unprecedented. We only have sales data for flexible brain-making software over 11 weeks, but the trend so far suggests that this game will keep this weekly sales pace for a while longer. It is true that even though we say Brain Trainer and flexible brain-making software is selling well, the first week sales were not explosive. However, the sales are not slowing down, and these games are encouraging the purchasers to purchase hardware as well, even many weeks after launch. This data clearly shows that we are succeeding in the expansion of the market. Nintendo DS's actual sell-through in the Japanese market topped 3 million at the end of August, or just slightly less than 9 months from the launch. This great sell-through does not simply show the hardware's popularity. This is the result of our endeavors to expand the gaming population. To analyze this, we'd like to look into the whole Japanese game market from a different angle. Based upon the data publicized by Media Create, let us compare the past 3 years' market sizes during late April to early September time periods. This is the market size based upon the suggested retail yen sales base. The current generation of the home console hardware market is reaching the later phases of its life cycle. The hardware market this year was 83% of last year and 47% of 2 years ago. Software sales were 90% of last year and 91% of 2 years ago, so both markets are declining. On the other hand, for the portable gaming machine, thanks partially to the great sales of DS, just as I was referring to, the hardware market size of this year was 321% of last year and 229% of 2 years ago, when GBASP was selling very well. For software, it was 124% of last year and 112% of 2 years ago. The portable game market has significantly expanded in the last 2 years. As a result, the total market size this year was 112.1% of last year, or more than 10% growth. Comparing with 2 years ago, in spite of the fact that home console hardware and software sales were down 22%, thanks to the fact that the portable hardware and software market has grown about 56%, the whole market size has come back to that of 2 years ago. Looking at this analysis, we have a solid feeling that what we have been doing in the past 2 years to expand the gamer population has actually succeeded expanding the total Japanese game market. Needless to say, the touch generation software lineup was not our only tactic to expand the gaming population. Overseas, we have just begun our strategy to expand the gaming population with the North American launch of Nintendo's. We expect to show the same good results in the non-Japanese markets as well. But we will not stop here. We are ready to offer new proposals to the veteran gamers that even those who have only started to play with the touch generation software will also find intriguing. Fortunately, we have found out that those who have played with video games with a touch generation title for the first time in their lives or for the first time in many years are continuing to be active players. You already know that hardware launch titles such as WarioWare Touched are still showing up on the daily best-selling software list even today. This is partially because they are being played by these new customers. And we have one more important element of our strategy, one that we'll put many resources behind at the end of this year worldwide. It's Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Consumer who purchases a Wi-Fi connection compatible game can visit one of the retailers across the nation with special Nintendo hotspots and start playing without any setup procedures. To ensure that people will not be put off by economic hurdles, we will not require monthly fees or any other charges for strategic first-party titles. We have also designed a system which will ensure that your online experience is a pleasant one, free from the abuses and harassment that can come from the anonymous nature of the internet. Nintendo Wi-Fi connection finally takes off worldwide this November. The flagship title will be Animal Crossing and Mario Kart DS. Due to limited time I have today, I cannot elaborate on these games, but would like to give out more information in early October. Up until now, due to many different hurdles, only a handful of people could enjoy games by connecting their existing game consoles to the internet. It is our goal that all consumers who purchase Wi-Fi-enabled game will try Nintendo Wi-Fi connection at least once. We are eager to realize that kind of innovation. Well, I think I have taken a long time for the prelude. Now that Nintendo has demonstrated positive results in the expansion of the gaming market with DS by expanding the user base, what would we propose on console arena? As you know, I talked about our upcoming console codenamed Revolution at this year's E3. This is the picture of the console that we showed at E3. At approximately the size of 3 DVD standard cases stacked together, it is very a compact console. Our aim is identical in both the portable and console game machines. Nintendo always had the same mission. How can we expand the gaming population, and how can we develop the market? The goal is identical, and it is in this area that we must focus our efforts. Even before we began our proposal with the Nintendo DS, I have had a growing sense of crisis. Throughout the history of game development, since the days of Famicom, the game control mechanism has become more and more sophisticated. Perhaps those who have quit gaming or who have never played with games look at the controller and feel it may be too difficult for them to play, even before they dare to touch the controller. In order to expand the gaming population, it is taken for granted that we need to offer games to satisfy veteran gamers. At the same time, I believe we need to make a new proposal so that those who are not playing video games now will say, I can do it, and I want to touch it. Here, what is most important is the controller interface. If we make the linear extension of the interface, those who are not playing with video games today, namely those who are not sure if they have nimble enough fingers to manipulate today's controllers, will shy away from touching. By dynamically changing the interface to attract those who are not playing games now and at the same time offering new sensations to veteran gamers, we can encourage everyone to play games with fresh excitement from that same starting line. We felt that this is the most important thing for us to do. Basically, this is the approach taken for DS. Of course, we cannot physically split the TV screen into two, nor can we make it touchscreen. So, we started by disregarding the conventional wisdom that the game controller must be held by both hands. Please take a look at this video. This is the Revolution controller. In order to realize the goal of creating a new styling line for all and to create a fresh control style anyone can intuitively understand, we have come up with a design that differs greatly from any of today's controllers. As you can see, we have also made bold innovations in playstyle as well. On the front of this controller is a brand new sensor, which we call the direct pointing device. This allows Revolution to detect precisely which location on the screen the controller is pointing toward. With this technology, you can not only point at a location intuitively, Revolution can also detect the distance from the screen and even the angle of the controller. The fact that Revolution will have wireless controllers right from the beginning will create a more intuitive and easy-to-understand control for novice players. And at the same time, for the veteran gamers, it will provide a fresh and surprising feeling of play control. Of course, we can also use multiple controllers this way at the same time. Multiple players may be engaged in an intense squash game. Developers may create a game with a cooking theme with a brand new play control feeling, or player may enjoy games in which they move the controller slowly and precisely. Or even one player may hold two controllers to play musical instruments. Furthermore, an intuitive fishing game with real rod-like action could be made. Maybe it can be used for a new way to control the jumping action of a game character. So far, I have just talked about gameplay control with only one hand, but that's not all. Another characteristic of this controller is its flexibility for expansion. On the opposite end from the direct pointing device is the expansion connector. This connector is the gateway to enormous possibilities for expansion. Today, I have just shown what we call the nunchuck-style expansion controller. We are planning on including this controller with the basic Revolution hardware package. In the first-person shooter game genre, a very important genre in overseas markets, where it is necessary to control both the direction of movement while simultaneously aiming and shooting at enemies, we believe the nunchaku controller will set a new standard. Using this controller, you can intuitively explore in the dark with a flashlight. In the same way, we can change the gameplay control of family games to make them more intuitive and easy to play. And, as I said before, we are eager to establish the new standard of gameplay for FPS games. Just as Super Mario 64 defined the 3D gameplay control standard, I'm looking forward to seeing how this new controller can change the play control of games such as Zelda, and what new kind of play control can become the standard for action games. I hope that you are as excited as I am to see the final outcome. Now, I need to explain why we are proposing such a significantly different control style. Firstly, we face the reality that within one family, there are people who are willing to pick up a video game controllers and those who would never touch them. Anyone will pick up a TV remote controller, but not necessarily game controllers. Why? We thought that it was the notion of moving right and left fingers separately and nimbly which was creating a psychological barrier. To expand the gaming population, it was necessary for us to design the controller so that any family member would like to place it on the living room table and think it is something relevant for them and actually pick it up, just like they do with a TV remote controller. First of all, for the controller to be placed on the table all the time, we made it compact. With this size, this is possible, we think. Also, just like a TV remote controller, it can be manipulated by one hand. The hurdle for non-gamers today must be significantly lowered. Just as the touch pen did for the Nintendo DS, the Revolution controller will enable all users to intuitively play from the same starting line. We want it to be perceived by every family member as something relevant to them and something they are willing to use. With such expansion function as nunchaku style expansion controller, you can of course use both hands. It will provide you with a brand new feeling for controlling FPS and action games. I want everyone to look forward to seeing how your most beloved games will be changed with this controller and how you as game creators will change the games you are developing. Let us listen to some comments on this new controller given by third-party developers. Mr. Akitoshi Kawazu from Square Enix. The first thing that came to my mind was controlling with one hand. Wow, that's a bold approach. It's great to see the movements of your hands and arms, especially the subtle action and twists reflected on the screen. The physical feeling you get is more than expected. I believe this will challenge us as creators to figure out how we are going to best utilize this fundamental change. Mr. Hideo Kojima from Konami. You've done it was my impression. This was totally unexpected. I was pleasantly surprised because the controller is quite comfortable yet provides something brand new. Famicom defined a modern controller. It made us control games using the A and B buttons, holding the controller with both hands and facing the TV monitor. We have been doing this for 20 years and this premise would now be changed significantly. Even though it was a surprise to me at first, once I touched the controller, I quickly understood how it should be used much like a remote control for your TV. This is exactly what I was looking for. Mr. Yuji Hori, game designer of Dragon Quest. At first introduction to the controller, I was surprised. There should have been a controller like this before, but surprisingly, there was not. I believe people will not hesitate to use this controller. Just like a remote controller for your TV, people will touch it without thought and understand how to use it. Starting with DS, I believe Nintendo has made game machines that offer the feeling of touch. The Revolution controller has evolved this feeling of touch even further. Thank you very much. The three developers have already seen the controller and I myself am very excited to see what kind of proposals they will make. But how will existing games be played with this controller? How can I play virtual console games, Nintendo games using Revolution virtual console features? Some people might already be wondering about this. In order to prevent the console video from becoming overly complicated, we did not explain how we would solve this. However, by taking advantage of the controller's expansion feature, you will be able to play the existing games virtual console games and multi-platform games using what we call the classic-style expansion controller. This is an expansion controller with the shape of existing controllers into which the freehand-style controller can be inserted. So please rest assured all your favorite games will play well on Revolution. I have discussed how this new gameplay interface can be beneficial to game players, but it can also be a benefit to the industry. For the next generation hardware platforms, the size of development team is projected to be even bigger, and we are hearing that smaller development studios are feeling that they cannot create games for these new platforms. However, with this new interface, even those teams with limited budgets and people will have great opportunity to create innovative software with just their great ideas. For example, the brain training software for DS has been enjoyed by so many consumers because of its unique ideas and how it takes advantage of the brand new interface. The development team for this software was small. Specifically, even at the peak development period, the total number working on this project was less than 10 people. The total development period, except for the time needed to develop the basic technologies, was less than 4 months, including the year-end and New Year holidays. Many are concerned that the time, money, and risk necessary to create games for next-generation consoles will be too much. Nintendo wants to provide a stage on which to showcase your ideas. Nintendo is willing to help bring these ideas to life. If seeing the controller today sparks great ideas, Nintendo is waiting for your proposals. Needless to say, we are not only going to offer small and simple games for which great ideas are everything. Rather, with this controller, we are going to establish a brand new standard for game control. We need to satisfy both the novice gamers who are looking for simple and compact games and the veteran players who are looking for big, deep, highly sophisticated games, or we cannot expand the gaming population. Because of this, we need to propose a wide variety of software which encompasses many different sizes and depths of games. Since the launch of Famicom 20 years ago, the game industry has evolved and grown significantly. With increasingly more photorealistic audiovisual works, 3D technologies, and the introduction of the analog joystick, we have been able to give new and attractive surprises to users. Because of this, even now, there are many people who believe in the idea that as long as we continue with this methodology of making games even more gorgeous to win the race, the industry can grow. Of course, the final judgment shall not be made by the game creators. It will be made by game players around the world. Those who believe in the past success formula can just go ahead with the direction they believe. However, Nintendo does not believe in that direction. What we are seeing today, the changes in the Japanese market, the reactions from the consumers towards our efforts to expand users with the Nintendo DS, and the emerging changes in the overseas market are assuring us of the need to dare to create new innovations which are completely different from the past. The intuitive interface has greatly contributed to the fact that Nintendo DS has attracted many people who have not previously played games to the gaming world. Abilities such as touching puppies, drawing letters with a touch pen, communicating with the gaming world with your own voices have allowed veteran and novice players alike to start gaming from the same starting line. Because of this, touch generation titles have yielded great sales. I believe that it is the job of all of us who are creators of entertainment to continue to surprise people. To do so, constant innovation is key. When our games can no longer surprise, people will grow tired of gaming. So, in order to expand the gaming population, we need innovation in console video games as well. To be applicable to today's market situation, the uniqueness of the innovation must be readily visible to anyone and must be intuitively understandable. This is the reason why we created this innovative controller, which will dynamically change the way we play game. Thanks to the efforts of many people in this industry, the power of game software has expanded to reach around the world. We would like to join forces with all the people in this industry to improve and evolve our products so that they will continue to be enjoyed by even more people for many years to come. Thank you very much for listening today.